All right, with Summer Huntington, thank you. Thank you for making the time today. Really excited to talk to you.
Of course, yeah, stoked to be here.
Flow Shala in Bellingham, Washington, and creator of Clubbell Yoga. And you've studied with Scott Sonnon for 15 years, and personal mission is dedicated to teaching flow state, right? To as many people as you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, once I kind of realized the power of this work, it's kind of like you can't turn back. Like once you know, you just feel compelled to share it. And I feel like I've been equipped with a lot of tools with being able to learn from Scott from a really young age. We're talking like 21. He got to me before I got any bad habits. I didn't even go the conventional lifting route. I went straight to clubbells. So yeah, it's been powerful, and I feel really honored to be able to share the work. So yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Did you have a sports background?
Yeah.
Sports? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I played a lot of ball sports in high school. I played volleyball, softball, and then I switched over to track and field, and I was a pole vaulting athlete. And then I switched over to cross country, and was a scholar. I had a scholarship to run Division II for Seattle Pacific University, and also did some pole vaulting. And then I transitioned when I moved up to Bellingham to just focus on yoga. So actually it wasn't really a yoga person. I was more of like an athletic sort of person and personal trainer. And then I transitioned into yoga in my 20s and met Scott Sonnon and Jody in college, and the rest is history.
Where are you from?
I was born and raised in California, so Orange County. And yeah, and then I've moved to Bellingham. I moved up to Washington as a teenager, and then just slowly kept making my way closer and closer to Canada, and now I'm just right next to the border. Yeah.
Did your family move to Washington?
Yeah, so my dad lived in Washington and my mom lived in California, and so I transitioned, and I consider myself a Washingtonian now. I just feel like I love the rain and the moss and the foraging. There's a lot of like wild mushrooms here, and there's a lot of just like snow sports and mountain biking. I've been really getting into mountain biking lately. Just got myself a mountain bike, so I'm pretty stoked to be in the flow state on the mountain, just downhill. Yeah, it's a hardcore sport, but I'm gonna get into it this spring, summer, and fall.
Nice, awesome, cool.
Yeah,
like mountain biking, especially with mountains, and I'm sure there's a lot of hills and cool trails, up where you're at.
Yeah, actually, we have this trail or this mountain called Galbraith, and so it's like world renowned. Like people come from all around, and so we have this like world class mountain biking system here that's grown and grown, and we have a lot of mountain biking companies here in Bellingham too. Transition, Fanatic. So yeah, it's definitely like we have a ton of breweries too in Bellingham. So people come here and live here for the lifestyle, because we're like an hour away from snowboarding Mount Baker, and then we have this Galbraith Hill, which is literally in town. It's like a 10-minute drive or 10-minute bike ride from the studio that I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. When I've gone to Bellingham, it's literally like a couple exits away from Canada, right?
Yeah, just 2 or 3 exits. And then you're in Vancouver. It's closer to go to Vancouver than it is to go to Seattle. So
really?
I tend to go. Yeah, I like going up there because they have awesome food and just lots of yoga studios and just cool beaches and stuff. So yeah, I'm a fan. Vancouver.
How far is Vancouver from Bellingham?
It's about an hour and some change, and then Seattle's about an hour and a half. So it's 90 miles south to get to Seattle, and it's only 45 miles to get to Vancouver. But you got the border crossing, you got to factor in a bit too.
Yeah. You don't want to get stuck, right? Sometimes border crossings can be tricky.
Yes.
Depending on who you're with.
Yes,
Travel with a lot of Brazilians, and sometimes think people can get stuck at those things.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Those they're just doing their job. I'm going to make sure all of my other screens are turned off real quick, because I can hear a little bell. So I'm just leaving all my other screens. I apologize. Here we go. Okay, back.
So, going back to Scott, how did you meet Scott? What was that? What was your first, how did that happen?
Yeah, I remember it really vividly, actually. So I was interviewing with Jody. So I was there studying exercise science up at Western.
Scott's wife, Jody, huh?
Yeah, so Scott's wife is Jody, and she was looking for a nanny for her kids, and I had a lot of like caretaking experience, and I love kids. I'm a mom now too, so yeah, me and Jody hit it off, and they hired me as the nanny. But like as I was in the interview, Scott saw like that I was an athlete, and I was a triathlete at that time too, so he could just like tell that I had like an athletic sort of way about me. And so he started kind of interviewing me for some film production. And at that time, it was before TACFIT. It was like 5 years before TACFIT. And he was filming the encyclopedia of Clubbell training. And he needed a model or female model to do it. And I think Jodie's sister had been doing the modeling prior to that. She's blonde, and she's been in a few of the old school ones as well. And so he asked me if I would film or be a model for this encyclopedia of Clubbell training. And I had never heard of clubs. I didn't really know what they were. I was really just a personal trainer, like, using machines, lifting weights, picking them up, putting them down. Had zero idea that there was this like guru, and he had a whole following of people that came to seminars at that time. He had a whole team of faculty coaches. So he had been doing this work for probably 8 to 9 years at that time. And I had kind of stepped in right then. And then I got to learn directly from him. So he coached me so that I'd be able to be proficient in the movements on film. And we've got a fancy Lululemon, $100 yoga pants at the time. I'm a college student. I'm like, oh my God, I'm wearing these $100 yoga pants. I was just really excited, but also really nervous. And I almost backed out of the video shoot because as a young girl, it was a lot to be in front of the camera and to be, the person modeling this stuff. So I'm glad I worked through that because it's led to a lot of opportunities with being able to attend his seminars as a guest for many, many years. Before I started Clubbell Yoga, I got to just go to seminars twice a year as a guest, and that was amazing. So got to know their family really well, and just really grateful. He's been a great mentor to me for a lot of years and gave me a lot of help with Clubbell Yoga and creating it very similarly to TACFIT. The Primal 12 was really similar to TACFIT, so. Yeah.
So what attracted you to want to train with them? The clubbells are so different, and this type of training was so different. What attracted you? What made you want to, keep learning in this different way?
I would say showing up at those seminars and just the level of knowledge that he had at that time was so foreign. Mobility was not a thing. It was not a popular thing at all. He was just may as well have been speaking another language like Chinese or something. Because a lot of that stuff they just didn't touch on. And I was in school for it. I was studying exercise science, and we didn't talk about fascia. We didn't talk about neuroplasticity. We didn't talk about the neuroimmunoendocrine response, none of that stuff. So I just was a sponge for a good 4 to 5 years and just a fly on the wall. And people would introduce themselves to me and say, hey, Summer, you're on the video. And I'd be so shy, and I'd be yeah, and I'd just go tuck my head in the corner. But I think after being exposed to it, the repetition of being okay, this stuff's pretty awesome. And then getting into FlowFit, we would do the FlowFit tests. I remember doing rounds of FlowFit, and I'm there's something to this. I think I need to shift over to this completely. And so then I just made the choice to just let go of any conventional lifting, and any of my personal training clients. I was nope, not going to train any conventional lifts, only clubs, and only TACFIT style, and only FlowFit style. Mm. And I'd say what attracted me to it is just, it's better. Better's better.
What do you remember? Any things that made you a believer? Moments.
Gosh, I would say one thing that really
this is legit. This is
So
this is the way.
Sure. So I was kind of always the weirdo, bringing the clubs to the YMCA. Anytime I wanted to go train at another facility, I had to manually bring my own equipment, and so you have to be okay with being looked at and gawked at for doing neck mobility and all the things. So. Yeah. I committed my own personal practice to being only doing clubs and only training those systems. And then I was training as a personal trainer in New York City. I had worked at a private personal training studio on the Upper East Side, and I had a lot of super high level clients that were athletes, and they would train 5 to 7 days a week. And so at that facility, the woman who owned it insisted that I train conventional. And I'd been training clubs for 5-6 years this time. I knew how amazing they were. I did it with all my private training clients back home. And then when I moved to New York, I had to do the conventional way. And I saw so many injuries in that 1 year that I did personal training, and not necessarily always from me, but I had clients that got injured in their neck just from doing lat pull downs. So when you see somebody in pain because they are trying to get better, that's just not okay. And so I trained for that woman for a year, just getting my feet wet in New York. Just, as a trainer, you're just survival mode. You
lived in New York for how many years?
I lived there for 2 years. So that first year I did conventional training. I was their top performing trainer, and I integrated a lot of the mobility stuff in there, but I still had to kind of make it look like I was still doing conventional. And then that second year I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I can't handle people getting injured. Screw this. And so then that's actually when I founded Clubbell Yoga. So I started taking my clubbells in New York City on my bike or in the subway. I would take them to my clients' houses, or they would buy their own. And so they had their own clubs. And so I started training them where we basically would do little TACFIT workouts on a yoga mat. And so I was a yoga teacher and I had the TACFIT knowledge. And so I would do a hybrid of TACFIT and yoga. And then eventually I was like, let's just put the clubs with the yoga and see what happens. And then I just pitched the idea to Scott, and he's like, yep, this is awesome. And I paid for a video filmer to do this like video of me on a rooftop in New York. I found a guy, I think I found him on Craigslist, paid like a couple $100 and was like, Clubbell Yoga on the rooftops. And then it went viral. It went not viral, but back then it was like a lot, like a few thousand, you know, from being not really known at all to like a few thousand hits in a day, and people in London like asking me to come teach seminars from one video. I was like, okay.
You know, like Clubbell Yoga, like there's one of the things in the copy said action potential. And so when I was first starting out, I was like, what's action potential? So why should somebody do Clubbell with do yoga with Clubbell?
Sure. So
explain action potential.
Yeah, I'd love to explain that concept. It's actually in that program. So the mechanism behind why Clubbell Yoga makes people better at yoga is post-activation potentiation. But that's a mouthful. And so Scott was actually, I think he recommended to change it to action potential. But the true mechanism for why you do a loaded asana. So let's say I do like Warrior 2, I got a club in my hand, and I do Warrior 2 to Skandasana and do that for reps. Like I'm doing 90-30. So I'm drilling that movement pattern with a light load. And what happens is as I take that load through those degrees of freedom, there's actually 5 degrees of freedom present in that specific transition. So as I'm taking the load through those 5 out of 6 degrees of freedom, my muscles store the contractile history of the load so that when I take the load away, what's left is more motor recruitment and more power. So essentially I can move with more speed, more precision because I've trained that transition under load. So that's why we named it action potential, because it's just a shorter version, a shorter way to kind of get that concept across. And it's written
basically when you have Clubbell, you have some weight, right? You feel it, right? You feel the load, and it helps you connect to your body without it when you take it out, right? Better?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's actually used in, I'm like kind of a big nerd, so I used to like look up a lot of white paper research on this stuff, and one of my colleagues in grad school, she was a softball coach, and she was studying PAP, post-activation potential, and so it shows up in other athletic sports, like let's say she was a softball coach, and so her team, she was testing the PAP, the post-activation potentiation, of swinging a baseball bat with a chain tied to it on a fence. So you swing hard and then you hit that resistance. You swing hard. So you're basically recruiting all of the motor units along the entire kinetic chain so that's mapped, and that you can fire that quickly and succinctly. And then when you take the chain away, what's left is a faster swing. So it's seen in a lot of different like sports applications, but that's how it appears in the yogas, because we're teaching people to have shoulder pack, countercoccyx alignment, all the club mechanics.
Key components, 7 key components, yeah.
Yeah, so we're teaching the seven key components of little clubs, lighter clubs through yoga asana, and it just supercharges our athletes. So it's been a great entryway into mobility for people that say they're inflexible or they are not good at yoga. It's like, you just haven't tried Clubbell Yoga. So you can be good at yoga. You just need to train it and condition it.
Makes you better.
So you can't get it wrong.
I have you mentioned like the people, because I'd asked you earlier if there's a moment that made you like a believer, and you just kind of got tired of people getting hurt, right?
Right. And same with yoga.
Yeah. And so you kind of like started doing all the interflows and all the CST, TACFIT things, right? And so like for me, I had a moment where I got thrown on my head, and it was like this one thing, right, that I just never forgot. And usually, it's like 4 to 6 weeks, and it never really heals, right? And then you take like some pain pills, and you just, basically can't do anything. But Scott showed me like some, basically some interflow, some basic movements for my neck, and I was able to heal myself within pretty much like a week. Right. And it blew my mind. I just never forgot about it. And that was really like that's what stayed with me for all these years, you know? And that's what brought me, you know, he trained me like all these years ago, right? And from like one of my UFC fights, but I just never forgot that, you know? So that's why I was asking you about that. You know, if you had like even a moment for yourself that you're like, man, this is like legit, you know? Because
Yeah.
I felt it so much in myself that I was like, you know, so I was curious if you had that for yourself.
I did have actually a recent pretty serious injury with a shoulder dislocation. So see that little box back there? That's a plyo box, but I use other type of like circus performing higher boxes where I do like steel mace performance, or I'll do like certain sort of dance performances. That's kind of where my flow practice has evolved into, is performance on a stage in front of people. But I was doing this this move where I was balancing, doing like an arm balance on the box, and then I fell off the box when I was trying to catch myself and make it look like basically like a 60 flow. But I was on my left side and it was moving too fast, and I caught myself in a funky angle. So I had an anterior dislocate where my shoulder literally was hanging down here about 5 inches from my shoulder. I had to hold it up. And this was literally 2 months ago. And I live at a community. One of my roommates came in and she looked up a diagram for how to put it into place. And then I was wearing a sling. So it was like a pretty serious injury. I should have gone to the ER for it. But I wore the sling. I just iced it and rested it until I could start doing mobility. And I have one of my colleagues, she's like, you're going to have frozen shoulder. Don't move it. Don't do anything. And I'm like, I know my body. I know that I need to not just immobilize it, because then it's going to be stuck there and all the scar tissue is going to start happening. So I listened to my body, and I did just baby, like into flow, just the most basic things. And then I did self-myofascial release with some balls, just releasing the scar tissue. So just started there. And then I started using a wooden club. So I have like a prototype of the original Clubbell Yoga. We made a bunch of wooden ones that were tiny,
Like
and I still have a couple.
like Indian clubs, like wooden.
They are just like dowels. It was just like an idea for like the first phase of Clubbell Yoga. It was like, yogis like wood things. Let's use a yoga thing instead of a metal thing that's scary to yogis. But I like the clubs. The clubs are better. So I started doing my shoulder casts, my side flag, and then my shield casts with the light dowel. And my range was tiny. It was like not the full range of motion at all, but I just slowly progressed and slowly built up. And that's the, like, if I could teach anyone like new to clubs, those components of just regular cast, modified side flag cast, and shield casting, like for people that have shoulder injuries, that's like some magic.
It'll change
some
your
magic
life.
juju.
It'll change your life, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
great. You know, that's basically what I do with my jiu-jitsu athletes and fighters. You know, like sometimes they go to the doctor and they put them in a sling, right? And like the worst thing, but so I have them do basically like interflow. Of course, always staying out of pain, but I liked how you said it, baby interflow, and so they can do the full interflow. But that's all, right? It's pretty crazy. Not always, right? But man, so many times, it can really help them.
Yeah, so I'm like 2 months away from that injury, and I can do all the things I could do. I'm still working with a lighter mace, and I'm still working with my 10-pound clubs, just because I want to take it easy. I have no one to impress here. That was like a pretty serious injury, and I just want to make sure everything's good. But I think I've drastically sped up the recovery duration by doing into flow regularly, doing all my shoulder mobs. I actually led a shoulder mobility workshop. It's like an hour long here at the Flow Shala. With all of the closed chain mobility drills from FlowFit. And so just like piece together all those. So the ones that no one likes to do, I don't know if you know, the ones where you're like on your belly, your arms are out and you're sweeping your arms underneath, all that stuff. Yeah. Nice. All the closed chain mobility drills are super just powerful. So yeah, love that stuff. I love having a big toolbox to heal myself, because it's like you can do an hour of just shoulder mobility and then heal your shoulder.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I mean, I had to go to the warehouse, right, in Atlanta, the TACFIT or the RMAX, warehouse, and I went over there, and it's just like crazy, like how much content and just kind of things, that they created, right? And Scott, and then when I go and I look, a lot of it's like a young, super young, summer, like all these books, all these DVDs, it's just like crazy, So like it's really cool. It's really cool to talk to you and kind of just talk a little about like the history, but it kind of just what has like training with Scott, what has that meant for you?
Well, that's a really big question, considering that I wouldn't have this place here. I wouldn't have been inspired to open the Flow Shala, which means House of Flow, had I not been able to train with a master for that long, and to be able to develop as a person, and not just as a coach, but as a person. Like, there was like a lot of impact that his work and his mentorship had on me. And I don't know why he chose me. I don't know why I got to be the one that got to train and go to all the seminars for nothing, and be like part of the watch, I guess probably because I watched his kids for a bit, maybe, I don't know. I just felt like he saw something in me and he believed in me. And now I've been able to pass that baton on. I mentor a lot of people for free too. And I really take that seriously, like pay it forward, like when I see a talented person or somebody with a big heart or somebody that really wants to serve, I give them opportunities, because that's what my coach did for me. So yeah, is that, there's a lot more to it. I mean, there's things he's taught me that happened even after. So it's interesting, because I had a lot of FaceTime with him initially, and then over time he got busier and busier with a lot of his, contracts and whatnot. And I think as the contact got fewer and fewer, then he was giving me just tips like, I think I shared this with you. He's like, master your business. And I was like, you mastered the movement. Now you get to master business. And so I think as we become masters of our sport, or master of flow, or we really master this stuff, I think it's really important to integrate those principles of serving others into your business, so that we can all collectively get stronger.
Yeah. You mentioned he believed in you. Do you think as a coach, believing in your in your students and your athletes is important?
To a point, yeah. I think that you got to believe in them, but I think they need to believe in themselves too. And I've had some students where I give them all the tools, but they're just not ready to take it, or they're not ready to step up. And there's no pressure, there's no expectation. But I think, believing in someone goes a really long way, because sometimes people don't believe in themselves. But if you believe in them, they're like, oh, I'm worth this. Like I should level up in these areas. So it's just person to person.
Some people, they don't want to be helped, right? They don't want to make the changes. But I think, I don't know, from my perspective, it really helps when you believe in people, right? It can make that change, right? When you believe in somebody, when you have faith in somebody. That's why I was kind of following up with what you said, that Scott believed in you and saw something in you and made you kind of go down this path, right? Go a different path. So.
Yeah, I mean, he gave me a lot of freedom and to do whatever, like he trusted me. I think he gave me a lot of trust, and I tend to do that with my coaches as well. I'm like, here's the framework, here's the principles, principles like active coaching versus passive, or cueing the mechanics of clubs, or making sure you have a clear class plan where we call it awaken condition practice in Clubbell Yoga. It's similar to into flow, and then the HIIT workout, and then the decompensation is very similar, but the practice piece is the yoga piece, and the awaken piece is also like yoga and into flow kind of combined. But as long as we're following those principles and they have a framework, then they can be a little bit creative with how they deliver it, or make their own unique workouts. So I think it's important to believe in people, give them a structure, but also trust them and trust your coaches to be able to deliver it in a way that's authentic to them and that resonates with them too. And I've seen some really creative, awesome takes on Clubbell Yoga from Coach Adrian, or Steel Mace with Megan, or Charlene's really a big fan of the club. So she just makes her own TACFIT style workouts all the time that are very scaled down for a lot of our female bodied individuals here at the Flow Shala. But they're very accessible for people. And so people feel really empowered because the coach is really seeing who's in front of them and adapting it to them.
Cool. You had mentioned how you added, like you started doing yoga, and then, you were using the clubs, and it kind of morphed into Clubbell Yoga. But I'm curious, and you moved back from New York to Bellingham. How did that conversation happen? How did it go? Hey, Scott, let's do Clubbell Yoga. Hey, or he told you, hey, Summer, why don't you do Clubbell Yoga? How did it come to fruition?
Basically it went like this. I was like, hey, I got this idea. called Clubbell Yoga. He's like, great, write a manual. I'm like, cool. Okay, I wrote a manual, and I wrote the first Clubbell manual, which I just like cringe when I see it because that was like the first draft, you know. It's evolved a lot, just like TACFIT probably evolved a lot from the starting point. But the basic principles were in there. Mm-hmm. Like the post-activation potentiation, all the poses with load are in there. But at the time, I didn't actually know that was the mechanism. Like I hadn't coached it on, you know, thousands of humans at that time. I was just like doing it myself and like thinking this could be cool. So yeah, the talk went like this: make a manual, write it. Great, here. I submit it. Cool. Come to Bellingham. We're going to film a shoot. We shot it at that place where Inspire Studio, where there's like a brick background.
Right.
Yeah. So we shot it. There was like fancy lights and, just a film team, my first like full on video production, and we nailed it. It was really good. It was just like 3 videos with how to get started with Clubbell Yoga. And then I think the other programs that came out after that, I had a teacher training manual that first round. And so I think that first year was kind of just like checking it out, seeing how it's going. And the principles were there because it's grounded in the mobility, condition, and decompensation and flow. The practice piece is flow. So yeah, we had just evolved it, continued to evolve it year after year. And, but yeah, it kind of started with make a manual, let's do a video shoot. And then we had the product, and then we launched it. And then it was just like, I was just putting content up on Facebook. I have a Clubbell Yoga Facebook page. And this was pre-Instagram days. I feel old when I talk about this. Pre-Instagram, I would just like put up these like super nerdy articles about Clubbells and how everyone should do Clubbell Yoga. And I got so much like a lot of people were really into it, but I got some flack from some yogis. They're like, this is not yoga. And so me and Scott had this like conversation and dialogue where we would kind of like counter those arguments. And he would defend it and be like, what do you mean it's not yoga? Look back at the ancient texts. They have staff, they have gada. Look at the Hindu deities. They're holding a club. Yeah. So yeah, that's how it started. And just putting content out all the time. It was video content. It was YouTube content. It was, and I taught a lot of seminars in that first little bit too. That was fun.
You know, is Clubbell Yoga only for females, or should guys do it too?
Oh, come on. We know the answer to that. Of course, it's for everyone.
I see mainly women, right? But then you're like, guys, you know, I see mainly females doing it in the past, you know?
Yeah, no, it's when
what my question is, why, how is it good? How's it good?
So when I first started teaching seminars, I had a pretty good mix of guys and girls coming to those seminars. So I think the guys saw it as this is like a more manly way to do yoga. So they liked it because it had the clubs in there, and the clubs, especially if they're black. The blue, sometimes they're a little girly, but we get them black clubs. And I really
the neoprene on the Clubbell Yoga, right? So it's soft.
Yeah. So we made like a special 3-pound club because the yogis like it was just too heavy, that 5-pounder. So yeah, why is it better? I mean, a lot of yoga.
Why should they do it? Why should they do it? Not that it's better. Why should they do it? You know, why is it how and the action potential, right? Mm-hmm. For yoga, like why should I do it? You know, sure. I brought you down for workshop, and I've done like we had a down here in LA in Burbank for Clubbell Yoga and Flow Fit, right, seminar some years back, workshop.
I'd say it depends on your goals. Like if your goals are to get more power and more range of motion and to be able to get more flexible and mobile, then Clubbell Yoga is a real fast track to get you there. I've actually looked at what does it look like for a person doing yoga only for a year, and then what does it look like for somebody that's entering the Clubbell Yoga practice on a 4-day wave for 4 months, and you can advance your mobility in 4 months. What would take you a year plus to get in yoga? Good. So skandasana, all of the access to the open hip postures like Warrior 2 and extended side angle and triangle. A lot of linear athletes that are really accustomed to doing squat patterning, which is like the heave and pitch pattern, or surging where they're just going forward. A lot of them really lack.
Can you explain those positions?
Sure. So like a squat is heave and pitch. So heave means going up and down. It's one of the 6 degrees of freedom. Pitch,
Which is like, it's like an airplane, right? How the
yeah,
airplane.
aviation terms. So it's just like it's just a lens that helps us be able to identify power leakages in yoga, or sorry, in just movement coaching in general, not just yoga. Athletes that tend to over specialize in heave and surge. So a lot of the conventional lifts tend to be just heaving and surging. Like you look at CrossFit, well, CrossFit's a little bit more diverse, but they're just doing a lot of the same, like those linear actions. And so the external rotation in the hip socket, like if I was to ask a CrossFit athlete to do Warrior 2, their bone is literally going to stop halfway into the pose. And so what we found is by drilling those open hip postures, so we have moves like Warrior 2 lunge, Warrior 2 switches, Warrior 2 to Skandasana. These are just basically yoga transitions with a club bell. And when you train those, and you train and meet the person where they're at their own personal edge, again, using those principles of mobility and not forcing it, but over time, you're shaving off the immobility, so you're allowing the ligaments and tendons within the hip socket to get more elastic and the fascia to get more elastic and to be able to actually activate the musculature surrounding the hip socket. So it's a fast track way to get that joint more mobile, versus if I did yoga, I wouldn't have the activation potential, right? I would just be stretching and stretching and stretching and hoping that maybe someday my ligaments and tendons would get longer, but there's no activation or load. So that's why it's more advantageous for those athletes, because when an athlete has full range of motion in all ranges, like if I have a Warrior 2 to Skandasana, I have more range of motion in my hips, which means I can actually recruit more power for my sport and just live a more pain-free life. Nice. And be able to do yoga and not be in pain, which is a good thing too.
You've done some yoga. What's your background? What educational background, I guess, in yoga?
Sure. So yoga, I did my first 200-hour teacher training in Baja, Mexico at the Yandara Yoga Institute, which is ran by Craig Perkins. And he basically runs this off-grid facility where you go and you do like a 26-day intensive and you learn to meditate, you learn about the energetic centers, the chakras, and you do a daily practice in the morning and a silent meditation. So it's very much like living like a yogi for 26 days. And I was just trying to get my chops in teaching yoga, but I had been teaching yoga fit as well. So I did like a yoga fit teacher training, and I was teaching that in college at the rec center. So I was already a yoga teacher when I went to that training, but it helped me build a bigger toolbox. So at the time when I founded Clubbell Yoga, I had that 200-hour teacher training under my belt and yoga fit and was teaching. And then I did the Clubbell Yoga. I started Clubbell Yoga, wrote a manual for that. And then I felt really compelled to continue to advance my teacher training knowledge and expand my hours there. So I did my 500-hour, which is the next level up in the yoga credentials. It's a 500-hour teacher training with a yoga scholar and master named Noah Maze, who's based out of West Hollywood. And one of his faculty, his name's Rocky Heron, was also one of my coaches, and he loves Clubbell Yoga and does a lot of the mobility stuff we do now too. So I got to study with them for like 2 years. And so I'd fly back and forth from LA for 2 years to complete that teacher training. And in that training, I just learned more about facilitation of teacher trainings and seminars. So it really helped me get that dialed in of how adults learn and how to also perform classical asana. So there's a book called Light on Yoga written by BKS Iyengar, who's one of the original founders of yoga, who brought it over from the East. And so we studied a lot of Light on Yoga as our textbook, or like our reference point. So I got to learn a lot of the classical asana. And it's really cool to see that you can put a club bell in all the classical asana, except they're really bendy poses, but you can put it in all the power poses, which is cool. All the warrior.
I mean, like from me coming from a fighter kind of jiu-jitsu perspective, I just think it's cool. I think it's cool. You have a body weight, but then you have these tools, right, that can help you make yourself better and do better in yoga. So that's amazing. Why wouldn't you do it, right? That's why I feel, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of yogis over specialize, and I think that leads to a lot of injury too. So this is a great cross training modality, and I always say it's not meant to replace your spiritual yoga practice. But this is a cross-training modality that's really going to help you get stronger so that you don't get injured and you have more longevity in that sport. And if you're not a yogi, this is going to give you an entry point into actually accessing those poses so that you can get the deeper meditative and therapeutic benefits of a true yoga practice, because you're not sitting there in pain because your hip doesn't want to go into that position.
Yeah. Going to the Clubbell like design of the, we're talking about the Clubbell Yoga. It's like a neoprene finish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like the regular, CST, the Clubbells, the black ones. Yeah, like those. And so like the 5-pounder, it's long, a little bit longer, right? Like was there a reasoning behind like the Clubbell Yoga being a little bit shorter and that design?
I did not design it, but I can give you a little background. So they used to have these really funky colored clubs with neoprene. I'm sure you saw them at the warehouse. They were like a teal forest green, and then there were some like red ones. Did you see any of those?
I did.
Yeah.
I actually took pictures. I don't want to overload pictures to you, but one with
send them out.
it was called, I forgot the name of the program. I'll look at my phone and I think it wasn't called Into Flow. Let me look at my pictures real fast. We're talking about it. It's like, Scott Sonnon, so he still had hair. So cool.
Do you have a ponytail?
No, that was later. But I found these old like gis, with the Russian, martial arts, the Ross, kind of things, So it's pretty. It's like so crazy how many years have passed. It's Into Flow with the extension. That's it, extension. And so he's there like holding poses, looks like Clubbell Yoga, but it's way before, right? It's really cool. It's called extension. Yeah. So they sold this package with probably those Clubbell Yoga style clubbells in them.
Yeah. So I think the neoprene was like a model, and then they designed the 3-pound one. The 3-pound one didn't exist before Clubbell Yoga. So in order to make a set of those, you have to order like 10,000 or something crazy. It's like, you can't just order one. So we took a chance and ordered the 3s, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have clubs because,
a lot of people have been ordering them. We're actually I think running out some of the sizes because we've sold more than I don't know, I guess the most in like 5-6 years. So
nice. Of all the ones, or just the little baby ones?
No, not the Clubbell Yogas, but a few of the weights, just because it's been going crazy, which is cool. Awesome.
Yeah, everyone's training inside now, so it's like
we're excited. Yeah.
Virtual studio time.
I brought you down for the the workshop, the Clubbell Yoga and the Flow Fit workshop, and then also did flow state of mind coaching with you.
Yeah.
Could you talk about what is flow state?
What is flow state, as in the concept of flow state?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Flow state is a state of hyper focus where your action and awareness merge, and you become completely present in the task at hand. So there's very specific markers for when an individual reaches flow state. So generally time might speed up or slow down. So think of in your workout, in a TACFIT workout, generally flow state kicks on between minutes 12 and 18. That's when the movements start to become easier because our motor patterns we're able to access the motor center in our brain to be able to execute succinctly and quickly and efficiently. And then our breathing starts to shift into a different gear as well, where it starts to become less laborious and more effortless, more ease. And we feel this sense of intrinsic reward. So there's a lot of research on flow state by Csikszentmihalyi, who's a Hungarian psychologist. He's the one who's done the biggest quantity of white paper research on flow state. And a lot of Scott's teachings he references that psychologist as well, but also pulls from a lot of other flow state research. That is flow state. We try to get our people into flow state at the studio here at Flow Shala. Our whole mission is, how can we help people access flow state by teaching them mobility first and getting them out of pain and getting them out of fight or flight, giving them this broad toolbox of regressions. So how can we get our clients and our students here at Flow Shala into flow state and keep them there as long as possible, because flow state is one of the most healing places for the human mind to make long-term sustainable behavioral change. And that's what I discovered after implementing these systems is you can't teach someone to be creative, but you can teach them how to flow. And then naturally they're going to become more creative.
You help them get more connected.
Yeah,
So
you get them more connected and
live their best life.
yeah, and the more they know and understand how to facilitate their own flow state, so then they're starting to take ownership of that and they can become more autonomous for it. And that's really when they can become their own coach. So my goal is to empower others to understand this stuff as well as we do as coaches. So my clients know the 4-day wave inside and out. They know what we mean when we say mobility. They know all the breath levels from fear level breath to force to discipline to flow level breath to mastery. But when you can know all these principles and have a really big toolbox and be motivated to implement it, like that's the whole goal, is then you can teach people to heal themselves. So then they know how to get out of pain. They know how to take care of themselves. They know how to move from their highest self all the time and serve others. And it's like a cycle. It's like you can teach people all those principles and then eventually they just want to help people. It's great.
That's basically how that's why we're talking today. That's what got me. I got thrown on my head and Scott taught me a movement to heal myself. And it all started from that. And I never stopped thinking about it. And then it's been healing me all over, everywhere. And it's really helping me live my best life. I really feel that.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you're super dedicated to your TACFIT morning practice, and it's like water to you, just drinking water, It's awesome.
There's a book, right? Stealing Fire, right? That's the name of the book, the Flow State book. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that book? What's the author's name?
Let's see. I think that one was by Jamie Wheel and Stephen Kotler, I want to say. Yeah, it's one of their first ones. Mm-hmm. That book gives a lot of reference to like different businesses and how it's really important for the Navy SEALs to understand flow state and also like group flow state, which is called ecstasis. They also talk about psychedelics and whatnot too. So I think it's just like it's not just focused on fitness. So it's like, how does flow state, why are we using
state of mind, really, right? It's a state of mind. It's a way of being, whether it be working or working out, or it doesn't matter. It's a state of being, right? Being super focused on whatever you do.
Yeah, but also the group flow state stuff's interesting.
Right. That's what I was gonna. Since you mentioned it, I wanted to ask you.
Group flow state, ecstasis.
Yeah. Well, he talks. Yeah, ecstasis, exactly.
Yeah, so when you have a room of individuals that are all in a flow state all at once, that's pretty magical. Like you can feel the energy in that room, that everyone's super dialed and focused. They're all kind of like moving their bodies like a machine together in a physical setting. But you can get people in a group flow state in other modalities too, such as Wim Hof breath work. That's a great way to get into more of a transcendental state because it's meditation and breath work. But yeah, when you take a group of people that are all in a state of flow, the result is all of their brain waves are in a gamma brainwave state. So they're out of fight or flight. Like, when people are really nervous, like right now we're in the COVID situation, and people are very much out of flow state. They're very much they're in their prefrontal cortex,
and
which is
fight or flight, right? They're scared. Their adrenal system's taking over and their immune system is getting shut down for no reason because they watch the news too much.
Yeah, and we just keep patterning that. It keeps getting deeper and deeper. But flow state's the true antidote for that. It's like if you can give your brain a little brain break and just be in flow state for 10 minutes out of that. Like you have to put in an hour of work to get to flow state for 10 minutes. And sometimes as you get more conditioned, you can get into flow state longer. But it's in that space where you can get into hypofrontality. That was another key marker of flow state, is being able to turn off your prefrontal cortex, the analytical thinking, the self-critic, the inner critic, and be able to tap into higher functioning parts of your brain. And that's the beauty behind training flow state, is like we have this really rad toolbox that Scott synthesized and did a frick ton of work research to get it all nice in a pretty package. And we have this huge toolbox that we can share with people, but people aren't ready for all that all at once. They need an entry point.
Like you said, it all starts by moving, right? That's what he says when he did his NMAP, the neuroplasticity, the neurogenesis, the arborization, and the myelinization. But it all starts with moving, right? Just do it. Just show up and do it.
Show up and mobilize. But I do think that there's different value in different types of movement. I think when you pair, I really love the magic, or not, it's not magic. I love the the clear and simple and concise pattern of into flow, because it moves first in a linear pattern, then laterally, then in a circular pattern, then in a figure 8 and infinity sign. And it's just so simple. It's like move from simple to complex. And that's what your brain needs. That's what your nervous system needs to be able to build the neuroplasticity, is like establish the basics, be really, really good at the basics and the foundations, and then build on your sophistication, your complexity. And that you could be doing forever. You could continue to grow, and there's nuance in that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I was going to ask you too, lost my train of thought. You're at your beautiful Flow Shala studio. Could you talk about, actually, I remember what I wanted to ask you about, our flow state, and our flow state coaching. I learned a lot, and I went to India, like a couple of years ago with my wife, and it was really nice. We got to travel around, and one of our tour guides he had a PhD in philosophy. So he taught he did yoga and did a bunch of things. Right. And we had, of course we had deep conversations, and he was telling me how like your work is meditation. Your work can be meditation. You whatever you're doing, whatever work you're doing, as long as you're really, really into it, is your meditation. So like, in a way, like flow state, right? Depending what level you get to, right? Of like focus, there's levels, right? What do you think about that?
I like it. I think when you reach a certain point of, finding flow in your work, it's like, it doesn't feel like work. Like you treat all the activities that you do, whether for me, it's like today I had a Zoom call with 8 of my coaches, teaching them transformation coaching and flow coaching. And then calling the brand new person that has no idea about this body of work and telling them how it's going to change their life and helping them get clear on their goals, to training my cleaning team. It's like, I'm stoked to train the cleaning team. That's flow. All this is related to the bigger organism, which is empowering people to be able to access flow. And so I think when you get to that place, it's just like I'm sure there's some monk or Buddhist sort of saying where it's like, what is it? It's, it's like pick up water, carry the water, pick up water, carry the water, pick up water, like do the thing over and over, rinse, wash, repeat. And then when you can get into that state of flow where anything that you're doing that's related to the service of being able to empower others, it's like everything has its same amount of value, from training the cleaners to teaching the seminar where you're, that's more of a fun thing to do. But I still think that all the things are as important and necessary, and there's flow in all of them. Yeah.
Let's talk about your studio, since I brought it up. So let's talk about Flow Shala.
Sure. Yeah.
Of course, like you've been involved with this line of work at the last 15 years, right? Directly training with Scott and everything else. What made you, I guess, go all in with it?
Yeah, so I taught seminars for like 6 years before I started the Flow Shala, probably 6 or 7 years. And my job, I had a private personal training business, and I had a couple coaches that I had trained to like cover my clients when I was traveling. And so it was gig life. Like it was, do a gig in Hungary, do a gig in London, go to New York, try to promote the thing. It's a lot of work to fill seminars. And that was that kind of became like a full-time job for me, was like managing my annual seminar schedule, like 10 seminars a year. And then being able to mentor those coaches and make sure that they're delivering their classes well and they're still growing and that they know what to do to grow their communities. So I got a lot of practice before I started the Flow Shala with mentoring coaches. And making sure that there was very clear, specific objectives for how to do it. So yeah, I guess it all kind of just happened serendipitously of like, oh, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been training and leading for a long time. Why not just put all that energy into one space? And then I don't have to travel as much, because travel gets really tiring when that's the only thing that's like your livelihood. I have a kid. My son was like 2 when I started traveling. I think I went to the the first FlowFit seminar in Vegas with Coach Sonnon after I stopped nursing. I was like, after that, I was like, cool, done nursing. All right, here we go. And then I went to all these places, and it was just too much. Like got to me for a bit, because every time I'd be away from my son, my heart would just hurt, and I'd be like thinking about him and how I could, like I tallied up one year how much time I spent away from my son. And it was like 4 months.
4 months. Wow.
Yeah. So the Flow Shala has allowed me to make a really big impact on the local community. And I just walked into this space. I actually have 2 floors. So this is the upstairs where we do all of our group classes, and then downstairs is private coaching. And then there's some offices down there where we do like consults for behavioral change coaching, flow state of mind coaching, nutrition coaching, and healing work. So yeah, I just came in and I was like, this is the space. Like I've been looking for a space for like 2 years, and I kept seeing, I was like, wow, my students are like getting famous in Hungary, or they're getting like so much notoriety for this Clubbell Yoga that's like changing people's lives. They teach at yoga festivals. And I was like, okay, it's got the social proof. Like people are blowing up. Like I just got to start a flagship studio. And so I just kind of went all in, and yeah, here I am.
Cool. Really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I have a personal question on like going back in your, in your career, your education, like learning yourself, being a student, and then also like being an educator and a leader. How do you think you could have done some things better?
Oh, I'm sure. It's a good question. I like that.
What would those things be?
There's been a handful of friendships that I have lost over the years because we didn't agree on a thing, or maybe I rubbed somebody the wrong way about something, or maybe I was just too fast and too dialed and I'm like kind of like I sometimes can come off a little bit intense or like aggressive because I see the path and I want to execute the path. I'm like a doer. I like want to take action, and not everyone's that way. And so I think if I was to do anything different, I would be a little bit more like cautious and slow down, and like, I guess, more soft with some people to be able to maintain some relationships that meant a lot to me. And now, it's a bummer to see like those friendships like fade, but I guess that's just part of life, it's just, that's a natural thing that would happen to anyone. So that would be one thing. It's just, I would love to tell those people, any people that our friendships have suffered because of different shifts or schisms in our direction of where we went, whether that's old students or anyone. I just want you to know, whoever is out there, that I'm always open to talking and to connecting, and anyone is always welcome here at Flow Shala, as long as they're showing up with an authentic heart.
So, I was going to ask you, I keep losing my train of thought. I'm thinking about what you're saying, but so the relationships and that you've had, like we're different parts of our different times of our life, right? We're in different mindsets, right? And so it seems like you're in a really good place now, or in a better place than maybe you were, maybe.
Yeah, I think I always, before I started the Flow Shala, I didn't really understand leadership. And it took me a good year of running this place to really understand it, because I was so used to doing things my own way. I was like, I think it's a really common thing with people when they have like a founder syndrome, or they're like, I'm used to doing it my way, it's my way or the highway. And then when you realize that you're only as strong as your team, and you have to slow down and meet them where they're at and really connect with them. So every team meeting we do, we always do like a wellness check-in, like where are we at with our movement practice, and then just a personal check-in so that we can all be aware of where we're coming from when we get to that meeting. So that's been just little things like that, to be able to connect with people more and listen and look in their eyes and see like what's going on. I can't just go straight for my agenda. I need to like be present with this person. Like maybe they had a crazy like traumatic thing happen earlier today, and I don't want to just jump into my agenda. So yeah, I've just been able to continue to hone, and I'm nowhere near being finished. Like I want to learn how to work with you really well, and I want to learn how I can, be a part of service to the TACFIT Academy and TACFIT organization, and ESIC as well, and Nestor. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to step into a place of leadership that I feel ready for. And maybe at the time, a few years back, I wasn't quite ready, but I feel ready now.
I feel it too. I'm excited to have you hopefully come down one of these days. I know you're more home, but LA, Burbank's not too far, right? It's one.
Oh, I'm down. I love coming to Hollywood or to that area. It's a short flight once we get back into flying mode.
And
that's all the car.
And looking forward to seeing a Clubbell Yoga come back to life, as far in the being out there again. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be stoked, and yeah, we'll just give it a nice little refresh and see what happens. But we've been rocking it out here at the Flow Shala, and I know a lot of teachers that have been teaching it for years and years. They just love it, and TACFIT people like it too. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And I'm excited actually to be able to come to TACFIT seminars. Like that's one thing I'm super stoked about. We're going to be installing rings up here on these beams. I don't know if
Nice.
you can see the beams up there, but
Nice. Well, it's an amazing studio. Really beautiful. The light in there.
yeah, it's on the second floor. So we have views of the bay, views of the mountain. It's just pretty awesome to wake up and see the sun rise in here and then see the sunset. Like we have a really sweet space, and you come in and it smells good. It smells like essential oil because we clean the mats with like tea tree and lavender and peppermint. keeping it sanitary.
It's so funny, right? Because when you came down, I listened to everything. Anybody that was connected to Scott, I really I went all in. You know, you told me to get the essential oils. I got them. You know, I got a whole package of them, and you know, it's funny because I did what you said, right? But I wasn't really ready for it, right? And then I do like some of these applied neuroscience courses and stuff, and I didn't have smell on my right nostril, and just kind of how much it affects. Like I'm trying to like do like more work and be able to do more, and how much smell affects like your brain function and just your overall being and energy that you have, right? And so I had a moment where I use essential oils now to, like, when I wake up, I drink my water, and I use a little lemon in the morning. I play around with it, a little eucalyptus, like maybe instead of like drinking coffee or whatever, I just use these little tricks, and man, it gives you more. It gives you more life. And so it's cool. It's cool to kind of come full circle with some of these things. And even like you talk about chakras, and I love like Dr. Joe Dispenza, and just he kind of talks about the science of it, how everything, people talk from the top down, right, but also bottom up, right, depending how you look at it, right? But just how you have to have all these things aligned for you to really tap into that flow state, to that pineal gland, and have everything like, say magic, but it's you want to say magic, but it is, it's where the magic happens, and you really can live your best life. So I'm really excited to talk to you, hear about all these projects, and see you like in a really good headspace, because I haven't known you, but we got to spend some time together, like some I don't know, it was like 4 years ago, something like that, 3-4 years ago. So it's really good to hang out with you and talk to you. How can people find you?
They can go to Flow Shala, at Flow Shala on Instagram. That's SHALA. They can go to at Summer Huntington on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. I'm not as active there. Instagram's kind of the new way. I also have a YouTube channel. It's just Summer Huntington, and I've been putting up a lot of cool tutorials with heavy clubs, and I'm planning to actually filming tomorrow with my film gal, and so we're going to keep working on some just teaser videos for people to understand this stuff, this really complex stuff, really succinctly, and make it pretty.
Yeah, that's the difference, right? Production.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, Alberto, when you're talking about the pineal gland, because I was kind of hanging with you there for a second. Yeah, I think that you're an amazing leader, and I'm so excited that you are the new leader of TACFIT Academy. I think the sky's the limit, and I've seen the athletes that you train. Like, you've trained how many black belts? Like 30 black belts or 25? What's your number?
I think I'm close to 50. And
50. Oh my God!
Like directly, right? Directly. So it's kind of crazy right now because we're shut down, and so I kind of think about that, and it's kind of crazy, right? But we'll go back to normal. Like people that just, we want to be around other people. What was the term called? The Navy SEAL, the group
ecstasis, group flow state.
Ecstasis. People want that ecstasis, and jiu-jitsu classes, group TACFIT classes, group Clubbell Yoga, like you get those things, you get that ecstasis. And I think that's where the magic does happen, because we can tap into the quantum, we can tap into that unified field, right?
Oh my gosh, you're speaking my language. I'm so stoked to hear it. I'm really stoked. I mean, yeah, the chakras can be perceived as super hippy dippy, but if you go down to the science of it, it's concentrated nerve ganglia in 7 parts of your spine. And then the crown one is the pineal gland, which is our connection to universal consciousness and this collective. So we're kind of coming into this state where everyone's like ready to hear this stuff. Like everyone's ready to receive it. And I think the more people we can get living from their highest self and not from their fear state lowest self, the better, because we're stronger together, you know?
That's it.
So I'm stoked to be part of the team, and I look forward to future talks. And yeah, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Summer. Thank you.
All right, cool. We'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.